What's going on, guys? So, I just want to make a video. Basically, it's something that's been bugging me, and it stems from the fact that I decided to watch Politicon, which I don't give a shit about. Um, but I decided to watch one of the debates I watched was between Ann Coulter and Anna. I'm better. I'm fucking better than you, Kasperi. um, and so in that, Anna Kasparian tells Ann Coulter she's afraid of other cultures, and that she doesn't like multiculturalism. Well, this is my opinion and my 2 cents on it. I have to agree with Ann Coulter in that I don't like multiculturalism. It doesn't work, and it never will, and it's always failed. And I'm here to explain why it never works, why it always fails, and also I think no one has ever, like, also the confusion. No one's really properly addressed it. Confusion that a lot of people have of people who do or don't like multiculturalism. So, multiculturalism, start with the term. It's used to define it's usually a country that has multiple different cultures operating in it. So, doesn't sound too bad, but right off the bat, what you can deduce from that is, well, there really is no unity. Now, when I say culture, I don't mean like here in the U.S. or like, you know, out west, country music. You know, here in the let's say here in the East Coast, they like pop and rock, and then on the West Coast, they like listening to the Soviet. In California, like listening to the Soviet national anthem. Very empowering. Um, but it's not that kind of thing. Not that kind of different cultures. I'm talking about the core values that make a society distinctive from another. Whether they value freedom or not, whether they value separation of church and state, whether they value women's rights, minority rights, whether they value gay rights or they don't, whether they value, a representative Congress, representative government, whether they value dictatorship, right? All of those things that make a society distinctive is what I mean, and what really people who are against multiculturalism mean when they say culture. I'm not talking about necessarily language, but language is a part of it. And I'm not talking about, I don't have a problem with, you know, Mexican people, whatever, celebrating Cinco de Mayo. What I'm talking about, say, is if you have people who are in a country, certainly in the United States, people who in this country are not exactly for our values or don't want to follow American law, who aren't willing to assimilate or contribute in society, and in fact they create their own little, well, you can call it an enclave, really. That's what it is. They create their own little enclave, basically, of their own culture and their own values. Use an example, you could use, of course, Islam. So Islam is not just a religion, it's a political ideology. And in Islam, there is no separation of church and state, and in fact, every facet of society is determined by the religion. Of course, in Islam, women aren't exactly treated that well. They're second-class citizens. They don't have any rights. Non-Islamic people don't have too many rights either, and they have to pay extra for taxes. Compare that to the American society, our Western society of, value minority rights, values women's rights, value freedom for all, separation of church and state, freedom to practice whatever religion you want. It's much different. So, what I'm getting at is that cultures that are different and that are, in many cases, incompatible don't work together. So, the point is, right, is that when someone says, I'm against multiculturalism, they're not against people from different countries with different cultures coming to say here in the United States and assimilating to our culture. They're against people coming here and basically setting up enclaves of different cultures that are opposed to ours. They're directly opposed to the American way of life and things Americans value. I don't care that a bunch of people from Uganda come here and celebrate their Independence Day. That doesn't bother me. What I would care about is if a bunch of people, say, from Uganda, and I'm not exactly sure if they do in Uganda, but they come here, and let's hypothetically that Uganda doesn't value women's rights, and now they come here, and that anyone in their community start oppressing women, and now they want to foist their culture to become the dominant culture of women are second-class citizens. I would be against that. So that sounds like a jumble of words, but if you put it into context in history, you start to understand it. So let's take the most recent example of a multiculturalism gone wrong. Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was a country developed by the Soviet Union and the other, mainly Soviet Union, Eastern Bloc countries. And it basically was, they threw a bunch of different ethnicities together into one country and said, here you go. And didn't really work. The reason why it sort of worked was because if anybody stepped out of line, the Soviets would send in a bunch of T-72s that would just roll over you, or put you full of holes. So that's it. Kind of kept the peace because the Soviets were there. Well, once the Soviets go away, now you have a bunch of different ethnicities, different cultures, and values, traditions. All who aren't exactly too fond of each other, and are against each other. Now there's no one to keep them all at bay, so now they all go to war. Totally falls apart. Yugoslavia. That's why the country doesn't exist anymore. Another example would be the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Now, of course, you can say Austria-Hungary partly fall apart because of World War One, and guys like Konrad von Hötzendorf, the Austrian chief of staff, being like, "Hey, we're gonna launch a winter offensive through the mountains with 1.5 million guys because we're not gonna give them enough food or winter clothing," and so you lose 800,000, at least an insane amount of people. Partly the reason, but it was another multicultural country. The Austrian, the Germanic culture, the Hungarian culture, Eastern European culture, and then you have a ton of different ethnicities. They all want to rule themselves, and what they want to rule them is their culture and their values. What I want to rule me is the American values, American justice, and American law. I don't want to be ruled by, say, another culture that has different values or, traditions. I don't want that. And so this, of course, is where the whole thing of assimilation comes in. Assimilation is where, let's say I move from America to pick a country. Morocco. Well, when I get to Morocco, the American, I'm going to have to assimilate to Moroccan culture, way of life, traditions, and you just go down the list. So that's fine, and that's the way immigration is supposed to work, the way it kind of normally works. The problem is, with multiculturalism, is usually what you get is mass and filtered immigration, or illegal immigration, to where you now have groups of people who have no interest in assimilating to the dominant culture, and who in fact set up their own little spaces, little enclaves, and it creates total separation, fracture, and non-unity in the country. So that is why I'm against multiculturalism, because it breaks apart a country. What I think people, and I've seen an argument from the left. You know, people on the left mainly argue this. Not all of them, but I've seen a lot of people on the left argue this, and a Kasparian argue this. She treats people against multiculturalism as people who are against racial diversity. That is a huge difference. Being against multiculturalism means you don't want conflicting cultures. You want to be ruled by one culture. You want to have one dominant culture everyone respects and follows, and therefore you have unity in the country. Racial diversity is a whole different thing. Not wanting racial diversity means you want an ethno-state, whether that be white, black, you know, white, black, purple, blue, whatever the color, whatever color people you want a certain race of people. That is what, you know, people who are intolerant of racial diversity really want. And this is where the problem comes in, is a lot of people who don't understand think that people who are against multiculturalism and all the problems that I've laid out are against racial diversity just because a lot of, you know, different cultures are in different parts of the world with different races of people. So you'd be like, well, I can't stand, you know, for example, use Islam again. I don't like the fact that Islam, you know, especially in the East, oppresses women. Well, someone might say, oh, well, you don't like Arabs then? You racist against Arabs? No. I don't have a problem with Arabs coming to the United States and assimilating. Or Muslims, for that matter, coming to the United States and assimilating. What I have a problem with is that aspect of the culture. But it just so happens they're a different race. And so it's perceived as I'm racist towards that group of people. That's where I think the disconnect is. And I think, I mean, I'm sure someone's addressed it, but I really haven't seen it been addressed. And it's pissed me off because people talk about multiculturalism as some great thing. And nobody wants to talk about, you know, just how terrible it's worked in the past. And how it's totally awful. You can't run a country with multiculturalism because you basically have competing parties. And it doesn't work because there's no unity, there's no one thing. Oh jeez. There's no one thing that people subscribe to. It's all these different things. And then of course, you don't like that the other guys subscribe to that, so now you're against them. And it just creates fracture, and it's not good for a country or a society to have multiculturalism. There is nothing wrong with racial diversity. Nothing wrong with racial diversity. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think a lot of people have a problem with it. A lot of people have a problem with it is multiculturalism. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest because it's been pissing me off. Just because people just don't seem to understand the term multiculturalism. They don't seem to understand why people are against it. And they also don't look at, you know, through the lens with historical context on how it's just failed. I mean, I just use two examples, but you can go as far back as the Greek Empire, the Roman. I mean, even countries, not even just empires, but countries have failed because of multiculturalism. And it's just not good. So that's pretty much it. And I don't know. I can't stand it. It's pretty annoying though. And I would have to guess, going back to my opinion, would have to agree with and I am against multiculturalism because it doesn't work, never has, never will, and there's nothing good about it. And I said I'd get back to language. Well, the thing is, here in the United States, we do speak English. That doesn't mean I don't want people to speak Spanish. If you want to speak Spanish to each other, I don't care. I don't care if you speak Spanish to someone. But we do speak English here, and part of, you know, language is part of our culture. So, in that sense, people who come here and don't want to speak English, that's extremely hard to assimilate to the culture. And of course, then you get more assimilation, and you start getting multiculturalism. So anyway, I'm done. I'm sorry. If you made it this far, congratulations. But I just want to get that off my chest because it pisses me off just hearing it. It's a load of, man, it's hearing that garbage, multiculturalism, and also hearing the argument against it that you're racist. It doesn't work for me either. Anyway, I just want to get that off my chest. As far as Politicon goes, I don't really care too much. I just ended up watching it, the debate. You can decide who won for yourself. I'm not here to tell you that. I'm just here to give my 2 cents on the thing about multiculturalism. That's it. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Peace out.